deliberations on looking at the gender diversity and the low numbers of women in the higher judiciary. Some of you may have our booklet, which we have collated some of our data that we've collected over the last 6 months. We've been collecting data on the members in the High Courts and the Supreme Court from existing material on the court websites. And this shows that currently in the High Court, the percentage of women judges all over is only 14.42%. Out of this, the court that has the maximum number of women judges is the Telangana High Court. We have Allahabad High Court, which is actually the highest strength, but with only 3 women judges out of 79. We have 8 high courts in the country with just 1 woman judge. We have 3 high courts with 0 women judges. And so we see a real shortage of women in the high courts. We also see discrimination in the manner in which women are appointed. So women, we have a 2:1 ratio that the collegium has said that there should be 66% of elevations from the bar versus 33% from the bench. And while this has largely been fulfilled, we see that in the case of women, it is not. So when women are appointed, they don't cross the 2:1 mark for women from the bar. And only about 53% of women judges are from the bar, instead of what should be mandated, which is 66%. So we see that women lawyers are actually being left out of appointments. Thereafter, we see, and if we take this data further, 6 high courts in the country do not have a single woman judge who is from the bar. So we really see how women from the bar do not get equal opportunity to rise up in the profession. Thereafter, we also see that even in the manner in which they are appointed and at what age, there is a disproportionality. In the high courts, the average age for men to be elevated is about 51.86 years. But for women, it is about 53 years. So women lose out by being appointed almost 2 years later than men, which affects their seniority, their progression, and rise in the judiciary. So with all of this data and the current statistics that we have, I would like to open out this panel to our panelists to look at how do we go forward? How do we address this issue? And what are some actionable ways that they can share with us from their learnings? And their, of course, not only their learnings, but their experience of being in the system, of being in the judiciary, and what they would recommend. For really, I think Justice Gupta highlighted the real challenges that women practitioners face. The actual challenges of women surviving in the legal profession, being there for 20 years, we see a huge number drop out and move on to doing other professions or other careers. And then when do you get the break? And so one of the things you highlighted, Justice Gupta, of course, is that one way is to get onto government panels. And recently, I think even Justice Nagratna has said that there should be at least 30% women in government panels, because that is an opportunity or a way for women to get visibility, to get continuous work. But I think it's really important, Justice Gupta, that you highlighted that the private sector has to step in. The private sector, the corporate firms have to step in to also say that we are going to give briefs to women counsels, so that they also get the high-stake commercial matters, and that's where also the credibility and visibility is built up. And finally, the infrastructure support, both in the court and at home. You raised the issue about creches. In the Karnataka High Court, we still don't have a creche. And we've had young women lawyers who've just had children, talk to us and say that they have to go home, they have to attend matters, go home, nurse their babies, come back, because they're still nursing their babies, and they're not able to say this in court. If they miss a matter, when the matter is called out, they're not given passovers. Sometimes matters are adjourned because they don't have a place to go and even be with their children, and they have to travel long distances to go back and come back to court. So litigation is a very punishing schedule, which of course everybody has to do, but do our collegium members or the collegium system take into account these hardships that women have to surpass to make it? And then how do we ensure that some of these challenges are kept in mind while considering women for elevation? Very easily, a statement is perhaps made that this woman does not have enough practice and therefore her name is rejected. But what are the hurdles that one has to cross to have sustained practice? So thank you for raising some of these barriers, which, and then the deliberation, we would want to see how some of these factors can be taken into account or even addressed. So I think you've raised really important but also very workable suggestions that can actually be put into place. And I think the crucial point you raised is that the need for gender diversity in the judiciary is important, because the gender diversity will bring in different viewpoints and different perspectives to judgments and judging, and ultimately that is what we want. We want judgments to be sound, we want judgments from different perspectives, and therefore gender diversity is important for that as well. And you've raised many important strategies, suggestions, including constitutional amendments for breaking the, for giving interpretations to Article 233(2). In fact, that was raised in some of our conversations that we've had with women lawyers. We've had roundtables with women lawyers from different high courts and the Supreme Court, and they have raised this issue that continuous practice requirements are imposing burdens on women lawyers, especially due to breaks due to maternity and childcare. And so that is an important suggestion. Also suggestions for requirements for the MOP to be amended to ensure that why can't we require that at least 33% of the judiciary in the high courts and the Supreme Court should be women, and have all measures to do that, either by ensuring that every list should contain women's names, or perhaps have one list of just women's names to get to that stage. Because even if lists have 1 or 2 names of women, it is going to take us 5 years to get even to a 30%. In Karnataka, we have presently only 16% women judges. So how are we even going to make it to 33% if we don't do one round of just women's appointments? And then, of course, the suggestion that the collegium should have either a woman judge in the High Court Collegium, and if they don't have a woman judge, then to ensure that they take the suggestions of the next senior most woman judge before names are sent. So these are very, very easily actionable strategies, I would say, and we will require your support in pushing for some of these measures as we do it after this, some of these conversations. So thank you, sir.